I'll see how much text I can get read in half an hour because I have just an extra half hour to spare. Some more musings about Schrodinger's cat. So if some of you don't understand yet, you might never understand, but particles that generally, like on the scale of electrons or the mass of electrons, are more useful to be modeled as waves than as a point or dot with a defined location and momentum. And that is that there's some wave propagating, and it propagates according to the solutions to a wave function. And it need not have a specific location, nor a specific wavelength, nor specific energy. For example, you've seen a wave in the ocean, right? If I asked you where is the wave, where would you point? Right? If I asked you what's its wavelength, well, usually a wave in the ocean is not a sinusoid, so you wouldn't know. Ask you what's the energy, and you'd be like, well, I guess I could integrate over the whole thing something or other. But these things aren't like clearly defined. And the reason why we have these terms like energy and momentum is because it emerges at the macroscopic scale, the scale that humans typically live at. The things tend to have have high masses and have these well-defined locations and momentums at the same time. And we can model them like that. That's something that emerges as you go up in scale. It's not something you really experience at really small scales, like the size of an atom, for example. So when you say something like, it's absurd to say that it has multiple different energies at the same time, because that's like saying a cat is both alive and dead at the same time. Because you're all caught up in this whole idea that something has an energy, when it's just a wave. It doesn't have to have an energy. Or it has to have a location. Where it's a wave. What's the location of a wave? Right? If it's a wave, it's a wave. And should be described as such. So a way that we tend to couch quantum mechanics is with operators and so on, is we're trying to make it as extension of classical mechanics. Trying to make it so that we take the things in classical mechanics and kind of change them a bit to turn them into quantum mechanics. But when quantum mechanics was first started to be used to model the motion of electrons in an atom, you get these comments like Schrodinger's cat, where they're like, but how could it be at two momentums, or how could it be at two energies at what? Because they couldn't accept a notion of something not being a particle, but instead a wave. Now, going back to the whole not a particle thing, the why sometimes it's said it's both particle and a wave has to do with something called the measurement problem. That is, say, if you were to shoot I've done this, you shoot a bunch of electrons, although the apparatus was already built for me to do this with, shoot electrons through a crystal, and then you have a screen on the other side with a bunch of material that screen beyond the crystal. It's a bunch of material that if it were to be hit by an electron, there are electrons sitting in states that they'll be excited up and come back down, and it would emit green light. Or green photons. So if you do this, you'll find on that like screen, there would be circular interference fringes. And this would be due to a collection of many, many, many electrons. If you were to somehow slow down this process and only look at what happens if only one electron hit, which would have been impossible in an undergraduate lab, like when I saw this done, you would see, though, it hit at a specific location. That photon would come out from a specific place, from a specific molecule. Meaning that despite the model we use to model the motion of the electron like a wave, you only get an interaction seemingly at one point on that screen. And by shooting mini electrons, you start to do like do an experiment with multiple trials, and you see a probability distribution, which would have been the magnitude squared of the wave function across that screen. And so it's kind of like we look at this and we say, well, this looks like true random. We have a random distribution of hits, and the probability density function for that random distribution of hits is the magnitude squared of the wave function. That's what we get from solving Schrodinger's equation. Now, I could pipe in and say, well, maybe you could predict better where it would hit by modeling the interactions of all of the different atoms and particles within those atoms that make up the screen. Given that we're modeling those as probabilistically individually, so in the end we're going to get some probabilistic result anyway, just due to that's how our models are. And that system is so unbelievably complicated that that's impractical, and you essentially are going to end up modeling it as a probability, like statistical mechanics. Anyway, so even if it's not pure probability, you're still going to use pure probability to model it, because it's either ridiculously complicated or real and true random, which are going to model like true random. Reason why I'm going into so much detail here is the game. I think this is where it's going to go with this. So, remember how at the beginning you don't know which character is going to die. I always thought it was Yuka. But then we figured out that depending on the choices that the main character makes, different characters die, right? And therein lies. And so you could say, okay, a character die, like the wave, like who dies is like Izumi plus Kurumi plus Yuka plus Haruka plus Saki all divided by the square root of 5 or something. The problem, and then it collapses depending on your decisions. The problem is and this came with the other game I mentioned the last recording that had a Schrodinger's cat thing. It was different. There's something concealed and it was revealed to be different depending on your decisions. It depended on your decisions, which means it wasn't random at all. You cause it to be something by your actions when you play the game. In fact, nothing is even close to random in this game. It's all entirely and perfectly deterministic. So how are they going to explain something with Schrodinger's cat? No matter what, it's going to be has to be conceptually wrong, because because quantum mechanics is either true random or modeled like it, and this isn't random at all. This is completely deterministic. So, not looking good for the scientific accuracy here. Anyway. I will say the game is really picking up. Started out with this kind of silly cutesy dating sim, and now it's actually starting to get Uchikoshi-y. It's starting to get that flavor. It's happening now. So. Here we go. More body-swapping, time-traveling, Schrodinger's catting, planned all along, telepathy, shifting, whatever majiggy nonsense we're gonna get into. Haruka slowly but steadily winds the reels. The reel. Her cheeks bathe in the set. Oh, I forgot I'm in the middle of this Haruka scene. Oh dear. Her cheeks bathed in the setting sun glitter radiantly, and an innocent smile rises on her face. I'm at the boring part. This is probably why I quit recording right here. You look at Kurumi and Haruka, they seem to be enjoying the seminar camp more than they were last time. I'm also rereading dialogue I read last time. The world continues to move on without change today as well. I'm the only one who's continuously anxious. I can't go on like this. On the other hand, although I think this, my mind is filled with melancholy due to the many mysteries I still can't explain. It's best not to know the future. It's way happier to be like I was in the past, where I didn't think about anything and just leisurely passed the time. Just didn't even go to class. But there's nothing that can be done about it. The only thing I can do is think. Even though I can go back to the past, I can't go back to who I was. The western sky begins to turn red. Time begins to pass away moment after moment. Haruka hangs her fishing rod down while checking the color of the moving clouds. Makoto? I already read this. Have you ever kissed someone? Okay, the world continues to move on without change today as well. I've been left behind, loitering around at my wit's end. Haruka's bangs sway in the sea breeze. After that, Haruka and I return to the lodge. Okuhiko was out on the terrace shouting something to himself. Unfortunately, I don't really remember what he said, because it wasn't plot important. Before long, Saki came over, but she calmly and silently passed by, as if nothing was happening. Naturally, the basket remained unscathed as well. Since Saki didn't fall into the ocean, she doesn't have any feelings for Okuhiko, thus she didn't get angry. That also means that no one knows that Haruka is a clone. I'm doubtful whether or not Saki even knew that. Well, we know for certain that Saki didn't know that. She mistook her for someone else who was a clone. They're so friendly to each other now that it's hard to believe that they were fighting in the last history. It seems that history is steadily proceeding in a good direction. Despite that, my heart feels like it's sinking deeper and deeper into an abyss as time passes. Will it continue to fall forever? Or will it eventually climb back up? Well, eventually it kind of descends out your hip bone and drops down to the ground, so I hope it, yeah. At any rate, there's no doubt that the fated time is approaching quickly. It's called your pelvis. Slips through your pelvis hole and falls out. The fated time, the moment where the truth will be revealed. The third trait. Oh, here's your opportunity. The moonlight coldly shines on the tombstones. The moist wind clings to my skin. Right now, I'm walking down the overgrown road in the graveyard. It's a little chilly. Walking next to me is the slightly shivering Izumi-san, who's wearing this, nightgown, essentially, all the time. Which makes sense. Yeah, okay. Yes. I've been waiting for this time. I already know that when the test of courage began, Izumi-san and I would be all alone. Kind of. It's an ideal situation where no one can get in our way, or be suspicious of us. It's already been nearly 10 minutes since we left the starting point. We won't be able to hear the others talking or their footsteps. I think that this will be the best time for us to talk. Izumi-san. As I say this, I grab Izumi-san by the arm, and then drag her between the tombstones. What? I cover the confused Izumi-san's mouth with my left hand and point to my mouth with my right index finger. From this point onward, we cannot allow ourselves to be discovered. Izumi-san slightly nods. In my palm, I can feel the sensation of her wet lips. Okay, yeah, that's funky. Her warm breasts leak out and tickle the space between my fingers. I'm getting kinda embarrassed, so I quickly take my palm off of her. You surprised me. I was caught so off guard that my heart was pounding. I'm the one whose heart is pounding. That beating intensifies when I took her spruce... Okay. I quickly avert my gaze and shake off those wicked feelings. I mean, she's just the professor, gee whiz. While pretending to be calm, I sit down on a nearby stone staircase. I mean, it makes sense that the professor's like the final girl. Oh. Just now you were thinking something strange, weren't you? No, I wasn't. Don't say such weird things. That's fine. Izumi-san sits down on the stairs with a suggestive smile. Yep. I wonder why, when I'm with you, Makoto-kun, my heart is very cold. Makoto-kun, you said it yesterday, didn't you? Is it really alright for us to stay this carefree? I also think that. As a psychologist, I've been seriously worried, thinking we should be taking these problems more seriously. But you know what? On the other hand, there's always some me who doesn't think that way. There's a me who wishes to accept the reality before my eyes as it is. See, take a look. Sumi-san says this. She looks at the sky. The stars are shining today as well, right? Even now, Regulus is continuing to shine. What's more important than whether it's true or not is whether you can believe it or not. That's how it is. No. I flatly deny this. Suddenly experiencing the strange phenomenon, if you weren't here, I think I would have lost my reason. It's because you're here, Makoto-kun, that's why I've reached the point where I can believe. Actually, because you're here, Makoto-kun, that's the reason why the phenomenon happened anyway. So, your point... believe. Something to believe in. Is what is Izumi-san trying to believe in? Oh, I'm so sorry. That word tends to kind of lose all meaning often. I'm just rambling incoherently again, aren't I? But I wanted to say it ahead of time, no matter what. No matter what, before I began talking. Makoto-kun, please, she mutters this like a sigh. Izumi-san extends her right hand and touches my cheek. Her palm is soft. My cheek, which is cold from the night breeze, warms up. Don't forget this warmth, alright? Well, don't forget my existence, alright? I don't know what Izumi-san wants to say. However, only my left cheek feels like it's melting. Okay. Alright, do you promise? I silently nod. Izumi-san gently removes her palm and places it on her knee. She slowly smooths out her skirt. And then speaks. Shall we begin? Her voice echoes in the darkness, as if she were declaring the start of a solemn ceremony. Schrodinger's cat. The third trait of Curie syndrome. Makoto-kun, do you know these two are connected? Even if you suddenly ask me that, there's no way that I know. In the first place, I don't know a thing about the third trait. Yes, but you do know that Schrodinger's cat is, right, Makoto-kun? I didn't so much know it as much as I learned about it. I heard about it today from Yuka. Yuka-chan? Yeah. And how did Yuka-chan explain it? How? That's a bit difficult to summarize. She basically hit me with a sword. Just deciding the past. Huh? Now, how do I put this? By opening the lid, you determine the cat's life or death status. In short, it's arranged so that the observer decides the past. At least that's what Yuka said. Yes, I see. If that's the case, then the story will go faster. In other words, it's like this. The observer's intention decides the truth of the past. The observer's intention? Yes. So it's like this then. When the lid is opened, the cat is alive if the observer wishes I hope it's alive, but is dead if the observer wishes I hope it's dead. No, that's not it. That's not what I wanted to say. In this case, intention refers to a simple motive in order to produce a certain act. I want to confirm the cat's life or death status, so I want to open the lid. It refers to the very fact that you think so. But you know what? What you said wasn't wrong either. Huh? The observer's wish completely changes the truth of the past. There's a phenomenon described as such that's actually been published as a thesis. The name of the person who wrote that thesis is Michael Cabot. Well, this isn't Schrodinger's cat anymore, but okay. What? That's this kind of abuse of the term here. What? That's the man who counseled Tom. Yeah, very same Dr. Cabot. Then the third trait of Curie syndrome is... Wait. We'll talk about that later. If I don't explain things in order, I think you'll probably get confused. Okay. Okay, to Makoto-kun, listen carefully. While Dr. Cabot's counseling progressed, he experienced a certain astounding phenomenon. It was something that defied common knowledge, an abnormal phenomenon. At the same time, there was a certain terminal cancer patient hospitalized in the ward of the surgical department in the hospital Dr. Cabot worked at. Her name was Julia. A girl had only just turned 12 years old, okay? Her cancer had already spread all around her body, and her case was considered already beyond help. But one day, all of a sudden, an unusual event occurred. The malignant tumor that should have been spreading throughout her body suddenly disappeared without a trace. Even with X-rays and CAT scans, not even a single trace of the cancer could be found. In other words, Julia's illness had been completely cured. Although the doctors in charge of her were completely bewildered by this miraculous event, the treatments we selected probably succeeded. They delighted themselves with thoughts like that. But the story didn't just end there. For some reason, for the rest of that day, the hospitalized patients' illnesses were cured one after another. It wasn't just cancer. Heart diseases, strokes, liver cirrhosis, kidney failure, diabetes, mellitus, infections, aneurysms, stomach ulcers, and even pneumonia. Every single kind of illness was completely cured without warning. The miracle spread in the blink of an eye, like it was some kind of virus infecting them all. Makoto-kun, you understand what I've said so far, right? Why this miracle happened, that is. It couldn't be the immortality contagion, could it? Do some tree or Tom touch Julia? From there, the immortality contagion spread around the hospital in the blink of an eye? That's right. Julia and Tom, who became the origins of this contagion, were acquaintances. To put it simply, they were childhood friends. They might even have loved each other. Anyway, Tom frequently visits Julia's hospital room. I want to cure her illness, and I have a miraculous ability that will enable me to do that. And one day, Tom, who believed that, gently touched Julia's forehead. Everything began from there. So I guessed correctly that the third aspect was that it actually worked. When Dr. Cabin noticed this, he discussed it with his fellow doctors. However, doctors didn't listen so much as listen to such a strange occult-like story. In the end, Dr. Cabin decided to investigate the origin of Cure. I got hiccups. While recording. Go figure. The phenomenon known as the immortality contagion all alone. Before long, several months had passed, and Dr. Cabin finally reached a hypothesis. This is awkward. Okay. If you were to define the symptoms of a delusion, I have to get rid of the hiccups. I'll pause for like a couple seconds. If you were to define the symptoms of a delusion that spreads from person to person as some kind of shared psychotic disorder, then you can liken the contents of the delusion in regards to that mental illness to that of a living creature. Said creature, which is created in a single person's mind due to mutation, may reproduce and spread into other people's consciousnesses one after the other by feeding off the vitality of its existence, as well as the intentions of people who desire for its existence. Hence, the more suitable and historical background the creature is born into, and the more powerful the desires of the person at that time, the stronger its vitality or intensity grows. So it's like a will. Incidentally, the greatest natural enemy of this living creature's ability to propagate is common sense. Once this creature obtains the vitality to eliminate common sense, it appears to be a new reality for the first time. It is perhaps possible that the religious miracles circulating all over the world can also be seen as the quickening of this creature. People's consciousnesses, trust and strong desires due to validity, bring forth this creature as a reality. It might be possible for a strong thought, a delusion, to create a new reality. In short, it's like this. First, a person lies. That lie is attractive enough to make people feel that they want to believe it. Furthermore, there's also a definite proof of that lie. For example, a miracle occurring in their respective presence or having actually experienced it themselves. Naturally, that's why the one being lied to also firmly believe that it's the truth. More or less, to firmly believe means that the lie is no longer a lie in that person's mind. The delusion becomes fact and fiction becomes reality. In other words, by firmly believing in a lie, it can create a whole new reality.
ええ、そう。
Yes, that's right.
そして、
And in Tom's case, it was, I can inflict others with immortality. That was the first lie, his delusion.
患者たちは
The patient sincerely believed that delusion wholeheartedly, and their own miracles occurred.
まあ、
Well, I don't know whether they really became immortal or not. In any case, the whole fact we can say for sure is that their illnesses were cured.
そこでキャビン博士はこう
Dr. Cabin then considered this.
古今東西の
The religious miracles from all ages and countries might be similar to this phenomenon. That's why it's curé syndrome. In French, the word curé refers to curate or senior parish priest. So that's why he used the French word curé instead of the English word curé. Wait, then the third trait of curé syndrome is...
そう
That's right.
妄想が
When delusions become truth.
強固な思念が
When a firm thought produces a new reality.
それが
That's the third
第三の
trait.
特徴だった
So basically they're saying that Jesus willed God into existence. Okay, let's just go on. Izumi-san takes a deep breath and sighs. She carefully straightens out her skirt again and placed her fingers on her knees. Schrodinger's cat. The observer's intention decides the truth of the past. That's not Schrodinger's cat! Third trait of Curé syndrome. A firm thought creates a new reality. Somebody didn't understand Schrodinger's cat when writing this story. Or just tried to stretch the concept and annoy the bejesus out of me. Anyway. I see, those two certainly do share some common points. Anyway, someone's imagination has already changed reality. When the observer thinks, let's open the lid, he is confirming the life or death status between the coexistent states the cat is in. Tom felt, I wanted to heal their illness, and that caused the focus of her illness to disappear. Now then, back to the real issue at hand. Just how can you say this is related to the infinite loop? Someone's imagination can change reality. If that's the case, then it is really related to the phenomenon of time travel.
実験
The experiment.
キュレイシンド
The
ローム
experiment for Curé syndrome.
本当の目
Its
的
true
は
goal also was actually an investigation on the third trait.
誠君に嘘をつ
To
い
lie
て
to you, Makoto-kun, to make you embrace your delusions, to see if those delusions would actually become reality or not. That's what I plan to
それを調
investigate.
べるつもりだったのもちろん最初
Of
は
course, at first I was dubious about the third trait.
一人の学者
As a
として
scholar, I couldn't believe this idiotic
その
phenomenon.
だから実験
That's
は
why this experiment was conducted in order to discover another explanation for the third trait. In short, it was something to deny the third trait, a counterproof experiment, right?
ええ
Yes. But before I even had a chance to make you think you were having premonitions, you started actually getting real premonitions. Like already, just with my intention of you having premonitions. And then, by believing that girls would die, they died.
だけどね予想に反して
But
実
you
験
know
は
what? Against my expectations, it seems the experiment has succeeded. While I would... The success or failure of an experiment has to do with whether or not you manage to, like, isolate what you want to learn, not what you learned. Like, it's not the result that's success or failure, it's did the hypothesis actually get tested? So, I don't like this language, but okay.
第三の特徴は
Even if the third trait was proven wrong, that would still be a successful experiment. Was proven. What? Wait a minute, Izumi-san. Just what does that mean? Didn't you say earlier that we didn't conduct the experiment once? It can't be you are lying to me again. No, that's not it. What I said was certainly the truth. So far, I haven't deceived you once, Makoto-kun. What you're saying isn't making any sense. Then what did you mean by the experiment succeeded? The third trait was proven. Why do you say that?
今
Because of this reality that exists right now before our eyes.
私たちがこう
The
して
fact that we are experiencing this strange reality in this way. And above all, there's proof. The time travel, the infinite loop, the premonitions, and the memories.
その全てが
All of these prove the third trait's accuracy. I don't... I don't get it! Except it's on the T, so it's like, it... I don't get a single word of what you're saying. After all, think about it carefully. The rice, the earthquake, the battery, the dinner, and the cards. Even though no one deceived me, I was correct about all of them. In other words, this experiment of yours is completely unrelated to the occurrence of the phenomenon known as premonitions. No matter how I think about it, it's illogical to consider that these claims of phenomena are related to the experiment. No,
おかしくなんか
it's not strange at all.
きっとこういうことだと思う
Exactly, you have to lie first, right? I think this is how it went down.
そもそも
At the start,
誠の無駄
before
この無
you were
限
caught
ル
up in this
ープ
infinite
に巻き込まれ
loop,
る前
during the very
一番
first
最初
series
に
of 6
この
days
無
that you
駄感を体
experienced,
験してた誠くんには
you weren't able to have premonitions at
で
all.
きなその時は
At
まだ
that time, you still knew
これの
nothing,
こと
not
も
about the
自
rice
分の
or
こ
the
とも
earthquake.
そして
And
そ
then,
の時間の中
I
に
think the past me in that time commenced the experiment
予定
just
通
as
り
planned.
多分
In some manner, I probably made you firmly believe that it was a thought as though you had precognition.
信じ込ませたのね
Okay, this is a good explanation, I like this.
やがて
Before long, the symptoms of Curie syndrome began to manifest
キ
within
ュレ
your
イシンドロ
consciousness.
ームの兆候つまり誠
In other words, you started to
あ
embrace
る
a
種
certain
の思う
delusion.
ところが
However, the subject of your delusion was slightly different than what I had planned. You didn't think I had the power to receive premonitions. You started to think, have I time traveled?
自分はタイム
But how do you time travel the first time,
考
though?
えるようになった
Oh, because you think I have time traveled. Because you think you've traveled back in time, and that's how you know these things. Okay. I can have premonitions because I've experienced the future once.
そんな風に
You were convinced
思
in
い
that
込んで
manner.
しまった予定では
In the experiment, if the experiment is planned, it should have ended without incident.
4月7
At midnight on April 7th, if I had revealed everything to you, your delusion would have disappeared without a trace. But that's not what happened. Yes. What ended up happening is because you believed you time traveled, you then time traveled.
その
Just before that, the worst possible situation
最悪の
occurred.
事態が私が
Because
死んでしまったから
I died. Oh, okay.
光景を
I think that Makoto-kun, who was faced with that scene, surely thought this. I want to go back to the past. I want to go back to the past and change history. And I have a miraculous ability that will enable me to do that.
その強い
That
視野
strong
が
thought warped the reality
自分の
within
中に
you.
あった妄想が
Your delusion produced a new reality. And so I returned to the past. That was the first thing that's the first time I really time traveled. It was arranged that the me who had already experienced the future had real premonitions. No, wait. Then how do you explain my memories? Even though I only had vague memories in the earlier histories, right now I have complete memories that I can easily remember. As it explained Azumi's memories and Yuka's memories as well. Right, I was thinking the same thing as you, Makoto-kun.
そもそも記憶と
In
い
the
うのは
first place, those which are called memories are something stored in the brain, right?
だとすると
And that, if that's the case, then it means that our current brains are the same as the ones we had right before we time traveled.
同じものけれど
However, there's only one of you and me in this time period. That means we didn't travel back in time with our respective bodies. So then where do these memories come from?
その答えは
The answer to that has already appeared.
この記憶は
It's not that these memories came
どこ
from
からやってきた
somewhere.
わけで私たちの脳
Our
は
brains are
4月
remaining
6日の
at that time
この
on
時間に
April
とどまったままなのよ
6th. Are remaining at that time on April 6th.
つまり
In other words,
私たち
we
タイムスリップなんて
never time
して
traveled.
いなかった
What are you saying now? Oh, we're just dead the whole time? Is that what you're saying? The moment of death, we ended up in a loop, right?
ね
Hey, Makoto-kun,
えひょっとしたら
perhaps this reality might be an event in someone's delusion. A delusion?
誠君にとって
To you, it's a delusion that spouted within you. To me, it's a delusion that spouted within me.
いい
Alright, I never said earlier that Makoto-kun went back to the past, did I?
過去に戻ったなんて過去に戻
I
る
only said that your strong desire to go back to the past warped the reality within you, isn't that right?
誠君は
Makoto-kun, when you witnessed the scene of my death, you strongly wished I want to go back to the
だ
past.
けどその思いは
But I wonder if instead,
過去に
that thought of yours made you reminisce in a delusional way about an ideal past rather than taking your consciousness back to the past. But it could have. But then when you retain your memories, that's when you don't. Okay?
観察者の意
The
識
observer's intentions decides the fact of the past. The facts of the past. What if we assume a phenomenon like Schrödinger's cat routinely happens in our daily lives?
誰かの強い願望が
Someone's strong wish completely changes the facts of the past. Also consider that that isn't an impossible
見
story.
えない話じ
I have this really bad feeling right at this point that it's going to drop a "if you just believe" ending. That is really not a very popular ending type. And I don't like it. But we'll see if it does that to me. In fact, Dr. Cabin has actually experienced a phenomenon described as such. But you know what? It doesn't mean something like you time travel into the past and end up changing history. You change the past the moment you have a delusion. That's what it means. In short, the instant you witnessed the scene of my death, you had the delusion of a different possibility, where it didn't turn out like this. No, to be more accurate, you're having the delusion of a different possibility, where it didn't turn out like this. Then right now, that reality I see before my eyes is, yes, it's nothing more than an event in your delusion, Makoto-kun. But if you believe hard enough, it will become reality, is what they're gonna go for here. Ah! Fui! No, I don't. No. That's ridiculous. Ridiculous, yes, I think so as well. But if that's not it, then you can't explain everything. For example, the card incident. Makoto-kun, do you actually think it's possible to have memorized the position of all 46 cards? That's definitely impossible. There's no way that could happen. Okay, good. That got brought up. Makoto-kun, you weren't remembering the numbers of the cards at all. Cards there. Instead, you were just creating the numbers on those cards. Except that was the first pass-through. So you're not explaining why the memories or the knock of memories is different then. The instant you flipped a card, you decided reality so that it became the same numbers. It's just like the instant you opened the lid to decide the cat's life or death status. Oh, maybe they're just saying you just Schrodinger's cat in it, using not Schrodinger's cat, but whatever. From within that coexisting possibilities, you pick that one with your own intention. And I think that it's likely that your other premonitions were the result of the same phenomenon. Because you said there's no rice, there is no more rice. Because you said an earthquake is coming, the earthquake came. Because you said dinner will be meat and potatoes, dinner became meat potatoes. But on the other hand, if you had said dinner would be curry at that time, then it might have become a reality where dinner was curry. That's correct. Even now, at this very instant, you are continuing to create a new reality. On Saturday, April 6th, that worst possible incident occurred. But Makoto-kun, no matter what you were unable to accept, that fact known as death. But Makoto-kun, no matter what, you were unable to accept that fact known as death. And so I think you decide to freshly create a history with a past where I didn't die. At first, you completely erased all the memories from within your head about experiencing those 6 days to attempt to create a different history. Oh. But that didn't go well. The reason why is because all your memories didn't exist, so in the reality within your delusion, you just repeated the same actions. And so you thought, like, this next. I'll decide to try remembering just a little about the events of these 6 days. Just a little. That's why you decide to erase the specific details in relation to the memories called death, and decide to only remember a vague abstract figure of someone died. But even so, you were unable to change the history within your delusion. Reluctantly, you finally decide to use your last resort. I'll try undertaking all my memories. However, you decide to hide one thing, the fact that this is a distorted past. A delusion is something that exists within a perfectly sound rationality in the mind of the person who has it. Likewise, you also absolutely couldn't have remembered the fact that you yourself were having a delusion. That's because you had to give rationale and persuasiveness to this imaginary past, and then you decide to produce that fictional story of an infinite loop. Everything in these endlessly repeating 6 days were real events. It was in order to make yourself firmly believe that this was definitely not a delusion or something. Then right now, the Azumi saw before my eyes is also sticks his hand through her and just kind of passes through, fades. Nothing more than a character from my fantasy. Right now, the details you're telling me aren't actually being spoken by Izumi-san, but just something I'm willfully imagining in my head? In your mind, huh? I just willfully imagined the answer to the mysteries. Somehow. Which explains how what the cyclicalness of this. You willfully imagined this thing where you thought it was reality, but then someone in there explains to you that it's not, and you imagined it. Yeps, I think it's probably in your mind. Except you're not thinking anything, because your thinking is just a delusion in Makoto's mind. You created a history in which I don't die, you go back to the true real world. In that instant, that's done, the infinite loop will come into existence as a real event. Oh. This means the worlds you exist in will reach the point where it becomes reality and exists all the true real history. Within me, in the world I exist in. I don't understand what you're saying, Izumi-san. In the first place, you just explained me, but what about you? The reason you time traveled, you're not saying that even that's delusion, are you? If that's the case, then what about my existence? Are you saying the person known as me is nothing but an existence in your delusion? Yes. It's not yes, is it? I'm a human who has his own personality. I'm not a fictional character created by your consciousness. Makoto-kun. In the first place, reality is something that can only be judged subjectively, right? No! The reality within you can only be seen by you, and the reality within me can only be seen by me. The world around you is your own world, and the world around me is my own. If your consciousness was annihilated, that would only mark the end of your world. If my consciousness was destroyed, then my world would also disappear. It's the same with this reality. To you, it's the delusion that's spread within you, and to me, it's the delusion that's spread within me. Although I witnessed the scene of Makoto-kun dead right now, I'm trying to create another history. The moment I create a history in which you, Makoto-kun, don't die, I'll go back to the true real world. It's like, I just say the delusion, one person's delusion interacts with the other person's delusion. Because otherwise, it's just like, you're having a delusion in, someone has a delusion that some other person is having a delusion, that they think that they're a delusion, whatever. In my world, the one afflicted with Curie syndrome wasn't you, it was me. Even though I hadn't done anything to you yet, Makoto-kun, you correctly guessed future events one after another. When I saw that, I realized it was a phenomenon that could only be described as a miracle. That's right, I actually witnessed a miracle. As a matter of course, I reached the point where I firmly believed in the third degree of Curie syndrome. In other words, I reached the point where I embraced the delusion that delusions become reality. Before long, the worst situation arrived. Your death. To me, who saw the scene, strongly wished this. The me who saw that scene strongly wished this. I want to go back to the past. I want to go back to the past and completely change history. And now I know that this is possible. I know delusions can become reality. A strong thought can produce a new reality. The next instant it was arranged so that my delusion to see another possibility began. I had no doubts that Curie syndrome had already settled within me. I just firmly believed from the bottom of my heart that my intention could change history. Heavy silence reigns between us. The wind suddenly drops blowing. Our surroundings are wrapped up in a complete silence where just even the leaves make noise. Clouds slowly stream by, the moonlight begins to disappear. Darkness slowly creeps through the cracks on the tombstones. Izumi-san is across the deep darkness. Her features slowly dissolve into it. She's like a delusion. A fantasy. An illusion. I instinctively stand up. There's no way something like that is true. There's nothing to do with Curie syndrome or Schrödinger. We're currently existing here, right now. Izumi-san is really here, in the flesh, sitting down before me. That's the truth. That's the only reality. I reach out my hands and firmly grasp Izumi-san's shoulders. Her thin shoulders. They almost feel like they could break right now. See? Mother just embraces Izumi-san. I hug her tightly, so that she doesn't go anywhere. Like this, she can't disappear. You're here, aren't you? You're here, right? You're actually by my side right now, right? Okay. Makoto-kun, thank you. It's alright. Because I understand. Because I'll always believe. That's why I said at the beginning. That's why I wanted to say it in advance no matter what before we began talking. What's more important than whether it's true or not is whether you can believe it or not. Regulus, huh? Okay. Even though the moonlight is blocked by the clouds, the stars are still shining brightly. The many radiant lights are spread out in deep, dark blue darkness. Deep, dark blue darkness, okay. Why does the distant, endless starry sky feel so extremely close right now? It feels like if I reached out my hand, I could touch those lights. You are so cliché. Stars are definitely shining, and in this very instant, those stars are shining. Makoto-kun, everything I've said up until now have been the words of the me as a psychologist. The real me will always only believe in this reality before me, because I don't want to lose you. Because I want to believe in this warmth. Zumi-san presses her forehead against my chest. She rubs it against me countless times like a spoiled kitten. Okay. Those are the words of Zumi-san's okay. Zumi-san, I believe it too. I believe in your warmth. Because I'll always be there. I'll always be there by your side. That's why I don't want to talk about any more foolish things. To me, you're neither a psychologist nor a professor. Just a... What? Oops. Zumi-san asked me to repeat myself, but I don't answer. I don't think I need to answer. When I come to my senses, the wind has returned. The night wind carries the scent of her hair as... Okay, what's with the sweetness of hair smelling again? Continue to say... Okay. Yeah, so taking that, if you just believe thing and just kind of giving it a double myostatin deficiency. Well, wow, there's a lot of crabs here. Suddenly, I look up at the sky. I see a black kite flying in the air, circling around. It continues to turn around and around without getting tired of flapping. Just then... Huh? I tear my gaze from the sky and return to Kurumi. What's wrong? No, it's nothing. Kurumi just picked up something a little interesting. Something interesting? Something interesting. Oh, this. Kurumi gave this to me. It was the night of the forest. Kurumi said she picked it up on Prince's Beach. Which means that's the bell, which seems like it's turning out to be a Vahi. On the last forest, Kurumi picked up the bell on the Prince's Beach and gave it to Izumi-san. If the same history repeats itself, then, hey Kurumi, can I have a look at it? Alright, if you best Kurumi at rock, paper, scissors. Rock, paper, scissors. Now's not the time for... It's fine, it's fine. Then let's go. Ready, set. Just then, the gears of my mind start to whirl ultra fast. Last time Kurumi used scissors. Yes, that's right. Kurumi extended the crab she was holding. If that's the case, then she'll probably do the same thing now. When she shouts this, I stick out my firmly clenched fist. Naturally, Kurumi has stuck out the crab. Kurumi lost? Hey, Sumo Crab, this is your fault, isn't it? You lost because you used scissors. Stable manager says nothing, white foam coming from its mouth. Geez, it can't be helped. This promise Kurumi will show you. As she says this, Kurumi quickly extends her left hand and opens her palm. Huh? There's nothing there. In Kurumi's palm is just seawater and countless grains of sand and nothing else. Hey Kurumi, quit lording it over me. Hurry up and show me. Huh? But Kurumi is showing you, right? No, you're not. Jeez, don't you joke around with adults. Kurumi's not joking around. Just take a closer look. Closer? Yeah. Kurumi thrusts her palm right in front of my eyes while nodding. Firmly stare at her palm. There really is nothing there. Oh! He willed the bell out of existence. Oh dear. There is! I see, it's here. Using the crab's toes, Kirby points to the center of her hand. Looking closely, there certainly is something. Wasn't there, isn't it? It's a star sand. Oh, okay. It's a jagged, pointy, small grain. It's not the bell, but a star sand. The star in her palm sparkles brightly. Ready, go! 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 Okay, some more sumo. Yes, it's nothing more than an event in your delusion, Makoto-kun. Suddenly, the words Suzumi-san said last night crossed my mind. Scene is all just a delusion? Kirumi smiled, a soft sunlight, the roar of the waves breaking on the shore. You're saying that all this was an illusion invented by my consciousness? What am I thinking? I'd have to be nuts to believe in such utter... Rather than be bothered with time travel and infinite loops, I should be more focused on realistic things. And what's wrong, Oni-chan? Your eyebrows and face are all scrunched up. Could it be that you don't find the crab sumo interesting? No, that's not it. Really? Yeah. You don't have to be here if you don't want to. I'm telling you, it's really interesting. So exciting that it feels like my skin's gonna melt with how hot my blood is boiling. Huh? Then it's fine. Kirumi thought she was the only one having fun, so she's a little worried. Kirumi's face lights up slightly. Hey Kirumi, while we were talking, crabs have been running away. Is that what you want? Wait up, Sumo Crab. Kirumi frantically stands up and starts chasing after the crabs. But 1 second later, Kirumi trips and falls straight into the ground. A cloud of sand soars up. She holds out her hands and arches her back like a shrimp, and her face is buried in the sand. What are you doing, Kirumi? I run over to Kirumi's side to help her up. Kirumi looks at me, her face covered in sand. Are you alright? Kirumi was crouching all this time, so her legs fell asleep. Okay. Okay. Kirby shuts her eyes tightly and wipes the sand off her face, her face with her palm. However, her palms are wet, so now a lot of sand is stuck to her palm. As a matter of course, the more she tries to wipe off, the dirtier her face gets. Ah, jeez. Muttering this, I use the back of my index finger to wipe Kirumi's face. Kirumi bashfully sticks out her tongue. Why don't you stick your face in the ocean? Before I realize it, a smile has risen on my face. 10 minutes have already passed since the crab's last sumo match. This is definitely longer than half an hour, isn't it? Yep. It's almost an entire hour. Okay. Endless waves come on after another from beyond the horizon, each one being different from the last. I wonder why is it that I never get tired of staring at them. A group of small white bubbles wash up on the beach with each wave. The next approaching wave will swallow them up, leaving no trace of them behind. Hey, Oni-chan. Oni-chan, do you like water? Water? Yeah, like playing in the water or taking a bath. Do you like those things? We finally get choices. I'll be Haruka. I guess I would say that I like it. When I was a kid, I used to love pulling pranks with water guns and water balloons. That's not the same. But why are you asking me this? Well, you're Krumi likes it. Krumi also loves water. Krumi loves floating in the water. Like a jellyfish. Calmly, leisurely. When she does that, it feels kinda nostalgic. So warm and calm, being like that makes Krumi want to dissolve into the water. That's why Kurumi really wants to go with everyone. To the pool, to the hot springs. Well, if you wanted to, then why didn't you? It's okay, isn't it? The instant I say this, Kurumi's expression suddenly grows dim. Her shoulders drop, her eyes go down, and she plays with the sand by her feet with her fingertips. She was scared. She was scared everyone would hate her. There's a scar on Kurumi's back. It's a deep scar. It looks like if it were cut and gouged out by a saw. The doctor said she got it when Kurumi was a baby. In addition to that, they say it probably happened shortly after she was born. But you know what? Papa, Mama, and Oni-chan are lying to Kurumi. They told Kurumi that she got that scar when she fell down the stairs when she was 3. Even though no matter how you look at it, there's no way Kurumi could have gotten that scar from falling down the stairs. I don't say anything. I don't know what I should say. After hearing Kurumi's unexpected confession, all I can do is silently listen to her story. And you know what else? The scar has given Kurumi quite a few painful memories. So we're gonna redo this story again. Okay, the earth abruptly rumbles from a violent shockwave. Kurumi lets out a short scream and plunges towards my chest. Surprised by this unforeseen shockwave, I quickly lose my balance and fall into the sand. Kurumi slightly cling to my chest, even though it's prone position, nothing matters. Okay, this stuff happens. The ground shaking finally fades away and all is silent. The only evidence of it having occurred is the two of us lying on top of each other. It's a very deeply engraved scar. I can feel rough bulges protruding unnaturally on the otherwise smooth surface of her bare skin. Kurumi's sadness is passing itself through my palm. It manifests as a throbbing pain coming from my chest. Kurumi. It's alright. Please don't say anything. In exchange... Okay. Oh. This thing should just disappear. The strong thought can't help but worm its way into my head. The scorching sun beats down on me. All I'm able to do right now is continue to hold her like this. Disappear? After eating lunch eating the lunch Kurumi brought to Princess Beach, the two of us are now walking back towards Luna Beach. Today's the barbecue. I can't let Azumi-san make the preparations by herself. After discussing it, Kurumi and I have decided to help out. Okay, before I know it, Kurumi's smile is completely returned to the way it was earlier. She guides my hand and cheerfully swings her arm back and forth while humming, but I already know that beneath her smile she's hiding a great pain. Kurumi is acting overly cheerful to hide it the best she can. It's just too painful to watch. That's why I wasn't able to respond to Kurumi's feelings. I just didn't want to hurt Kurumi even more. Kurumi? What annoying, Sean? Okay, so this dialogue again. Why does Oni-chan have to come with us? Why, that's because you're sisters. Sisters? You and Izumi-san are sisters, so if I were to invite only one of you, it would be, how do I put it? Unfair, right? That's not the reason. This and that are completely unrelated. You think so? Of course. Kurumi sees. So that's it. Huh? Inviting Kurumi is just a pretext. What? The one you really want to invite is Oni-chan. In other words, you're trying to use Kurumi as a pretext. That's your ulterior motive, isn't it? What are you saying? That's not... Do you like her? What? You like Oni-chan, don't you? Are you an idiot? What's with the... Then you hate her? Why would I? There's no way I would hate her. And you really do like her. Well, either way, that's that. Kurumi doesn't mind at all. If you're with Oni-chan, then she'll set you straight, that's for sure. And besides, Oni-chan is a better match for you than Kurumi is. But a promise is a promise. The three of us will go to an amusement park. With that, Kurumi grabs my arm and swings it high. She pulls it up to her cheek while trotting. Okay. We're live at Luna Beach. Kurumi lets go of my hand. I also entered the shop following after Kurumi. Justin. Oh, Haruka-san. She's just here. What's wrong, Haruka? Weren't you fishing? Yes, but I got hungry, so... Yes, that's right. That's why I made chicken rice. It was shrimp pilaf. Yes, that's it. Something sus going on here. It wasn't chicken rice, it was shrimp pilaf. Yes, that's right, that's right. And we finished eating now, so the two of us were in the middle of talking. That's rare. Izumi-san and Haruka talking all alone? It's starting again with Haruka. So what is it, Kurumi? Oh, what do you mean? You just burst in here loudly shouting Oni-chan, Oni-chan, right? Oh, that. Well, guess what? Oni-chan said that he'd take me to an amusement park. An amusement park? Yeah, so he thought that you should come with us too. The amusement park, huh? Come to think of it, we haven't been there recently. Right. Okay. So Oni-chan's completely paying for us all as well. What? No way, I feel bad about that. Don't. Oni-chan said he would do so himself. We're sisters, so it'd be unfair if one of you had to pay. Because we're sisters? Uh-oh. And at that time, Haruka quietly stands up. I have to go now. Oh, that's right. Haruka-chan, would you like to come along as well? Oh. It's more fun when you go to an amusement park with a larger group, right? It's fine because I'm different. I'm really sorry. Those words, Haruka walks briskly towards the exit. Oh, wait a minute. Did Kurumi do something?
大丈夫。
It's alright. Haruka turns right around. She looks straight into
分
Kurumi's
かってる
eyes.
から。
Because I understand.
くるみのことは何でも。
Because I understand you completely, Kurumi. Haruka smiles faintly. It's a kind smile. As if she's doing it to show affection towards
それ
Kurumi.
じゃ。
Well then, see you later. Haruka leaves the shop, still smiling. Geez, Kurumi said wait. Come with us to the amusement park. Kurumi bolts out of the shop and chases after Haruka. Zumi-san and I have been left behind. We exchange glances. Izumi-san is looking upwards, with tightly pursed lips. Izumi-san is looking for help. Looks like she's trying to tell me something serious. Judging by her expression and uneasiness, it seems like an urgent matter. And so, did something happen? Ask her this. Izumi-san opens her mouth, but she swallows her words. Silently, she begins walking towards the door. She flips the sign so that it reads closed, comes back in, passes right by me, and sits down on a chair on the terrace. Makoto-kun. I also head towards the terrace, drawn in by her words like a moth to a flame. I slowly sit down on a chair across from Izumi-san. She places her fingers on the table and takes a faint breath. Makoto-kun, I don't know what to do.
はるかちゃん。
Haruka-chan
ちゃんは
is
私の
definitely
本当の
my real
妹なのよ。
sister. So Azumi thinks that Furumi's not her real sister, Haruka is. Strangely, I'm not unsettled. When I think about the other events of the past 10 days, this isn't anywhere near as strange. Haruka and Izumi-san are actually sisters. Under normal circumstances, this would have shocked me. But compared to the infinite loop and the third trait, this isn't much far-fetched idea. My senses have become completely numbed. All I can do is silently nod. I'll judge Izumi-san's reasoning after hearing her story. She seems to have realized this, so she picks up where she left off. Haruka, Izumi-san, and Kurumi just what happened in their pasts. Oh, they're gonna tell this again. Okay, well I have to stop recording, so I'll just stop recording. Lot of repetition.